to the ABC Podcast.
Always be cool.
The show where your hosts, DC and BK, showcase your local business and real estate pros going gangbusters in leadership, community involvement, and just being cool.
Here are your hosts, serial entrepreneurs, mortgage experts at Summit Lending, and partners in crime, Deron Copeland and Bobby Kerr.
All right, everybody, it's the Always Be Cool podcast, hanging out with your hosts, Bobby Kerr and Deron Copeland.
What's up, everybody?
We've got a really, really special guest today. DC is about to do his usual introduction, but man, we are just super, super excited today to have the living Kansas City Chiefs legend and just a phenomenal philanthropist here in Kansas City, Mr. Deron Cherry.
All right, guys, here we go. Born September 12th, 1959 from Riverside, New Jersey, played football at Rutgers University, played with the Kansas City Chiefs from 1981 to 1991, six-time Pro Bowl selection from 1983 to 88. Wow. He is regarded as one of the best free safeties to ever play the game. Only one of 26 players of all time to have at least 50 or more interceptions. In 1998, he won the Whizzer White NFL Man of the Year award. He's on the NFL 1980s All-Decade team, Kansas City Chiefs Hall of Famer. His Deron Cherry Foundation supports several great causes: Score One for Health, Camp Quality, Midwest Animal Rescue, and Answering the Call. Chiefs legend and all-around awesome guy, Deron Cherry, welcome to the show, man. It's great to have you here.
Me, man. This is cool. I enjoy these podcasts and love the idea of talking and just meeting new people and new experiences. So this is fun. I'm grateful that you guys asked me to come on.
Well,
Absolutely.
We're grateful to have you, and we were just discussing before we started recording that, you know, we've got lots of people in our lives that kind of bring us all together, and that seems to happen a lot of times with our guests. Is we know 3 or 4 people together, so that's a ton of fun. So
that's why we always have to be cool, Bobby, because it's a very small world. You just never
Kansas
know.
City is a small town. Everybody
really
knows everybody, and it's funny. I was down at the lake. You were talking about Jamie.
Yeah.
Her husband, meeting them because our daughters go to Ninja Warriors together, and she brought up your name, and it's just amazing how the connections work. And now she's helping me try to get a vehicle.
Oh yeah,
it's been hard to get a car under these circumstances. So she's been helping me with that, and it's just amazing that the people that you meet and how interconnected we all are, especially here in Kansas City. Even though it's a fairly good-sized city, it's still small.
Absolutely.
So everybody knows each other.
It's literally like the smallest big town you could come across, right?
It's wonderful. I enjoy living here, raising my family here. It's just a wonderful place. I tell people when I travel all over the country, I say Kansas City is the best-kept secret. Well, I don't want to live in a small city. I'm like, well, don't come here. We're fine. We're okay.
Right. I know. Well, a lot of the guys, that we have on the show, a lot of former Royals players predominantly, because that's our sphere is the Royals guys. And they are all, at some point, were pretty much transplants from other cities. Mm-hmm. They came here to play professional sports. And then they just stayed and never left. And they say the same thing. It was the best kept secret. Why would I ever leave? This community embraced me and my family with love and open arms, even after my career ended. That's special because that doesn't really happen everywhere else. I don't think.
Exactly. And the thing is, it's not like we live on the beach or water here in Kansas City, right? But it's amazing the amount of people that hang around.
Yeah, it is. And, the good thing about Kansas City, it is centrally located. So if you need to get to the beach or the ocean or a lake or something like that, it's pretty close by and you can still enjoy those things, just because you're centrally located in the middle of the country. And it's just great. It's great to raise a family here.
Right.
The cost of living is good. And I think, a lot of guys, they want to make sure that their hard-earned money, stays with them longer. Right? So a lot of them, that's why they stay here, because some other places you go to and it's just like, wow, how expensive is this?
It's crazy. It's crazy.
The quality of life here is just amazing.
Yeah, and the food's not too bad too, right?
I'm a barbecue guy.
Heck yeah.
Right.
There's no other place in this country that, and I argue with people all the time, until you come to Kansas City and eat that barbecue, you don't know how good it is.
It's true. It's true. Well, you talk about, staying here and really embedding yourself in a community. I mean, obviously we'll talk a lot about your time with the Chiefs, but for you to kind of make that transition to business, right, from football? Like, it feels like you were really thinking post-football, even in the middle or even in the beginning of your career, to say, I'm not going to do this forever. Because I'm assuming, right, and a lot of professional athletes don't really think about that, especially in the middle of their career. So, like, what was it that made something click for you to be like, this is where I want to be? I want to embed myself in not only the community, but with business, and to say, I'm ready to focus on something else.
Well, in our sport, guys, as you know, you're only one play away from your career being over. And I always thought about that because I'd always see guys that get injured or get hurt, or guys that came before me that, had a career-ending injury and they didn't have anything else to fall back on.
Right.
So, if you're looking at those situations and you're not learning from them, then shame on you. And so I always understood that I'm one play away from not playing this sport anymore. And I'm one play away from having my life change instantly. And I always wanted to be prepared. So during the off seasons and even during the seasons, I would, do internships. If I was interested in something, I'd go talk to somebody that was in that field and just try to build my network up so that when I got done playing, at least I had a list of names of people I could go see and go talk and gather information on what I wanted to do. And it was actually a friend of mine, a banker, that came to me and said, hey, here's an opportunity, call this guy and see if he's interested in maybe partnering with you. And so I did, and the guy kind of cussed me out and said, no, I'm not willing to take on any partners. I'm not willing to sell. And,
Right.
And then a couple of weeks after that, or a month or so, Anheuser-Busch wound up terminating the guy and taking away his distributorship.
Oh, wow.
And then it kind of opened up the door. But, I had been laying the groundwork and doing the things to put me in a position where I could take advantage of an opportunity when it came up. So always thinking about my last play, could it be over, and, 1989, the wake-up call came when playing against the San Diego Chargers in Arrowhead Stadium, next to the last game of the season. And there was a play, Neil Smith got fooled on the reverse, double-backed. I came up to make the tackle on the guy, and he dove to try to catch him. The guy ducks down. Neil hits me, and I didn't know he had hit me until I saw the film. Hits me in my knee, and then I tear my ACL. So, you're sitting there and you're walking off that field. I got up, walked off the field, but I knew something wasn't right. And then when I went down the tunnel because they wanted to check me out inside, my knee kind of flew open.
Oh, no.
Okay, something definitely is not right here. And then the doctor told me, he says, I think you probably tore your ACL. So that was a wake-up call. Even though I was planning, it was still a wake-up call because then the reality sets in. Now you're saying, now I got to work my butt off to get back. And I didn't mind working. Working was okay with me. But it's still a setback. It's an adverse situation. Now you got to deal with it mentally because you go in, you get in an operation, and you come out of the operation, and your leg is 4 times the size, your knee is 4 times the size of your leg, and you're sitting there, and then all of a sudden reality hits in. It's like, man, is it ever going to get back to being normal, right? So you feel all that anxiety, and you want it to go away quickly, but it's going to be a process. For me, it was 10 months process. The doctor said maybe a year and a half. And I said, no, it's not going to take me a year and a half to get back. I'm going to work my butt off. And I did, every day, sometimes 3 times a day. I was in rehab just trying to get back. And I was able to get back on the field in 10 months. And that was, I could have got back sooner, but because of the league rules, when you're on the PUP list, you got to sit out the first 6 games. So, it was a learning experience for me, to be able to go through that adversity because then you find out about yourself and what you're made of. how hard it takes to work to get back, and you never take it for granted, because I saw guys that couldn't recover from that surgery because of the pain level, the rehab that it took, and technology has changed. I mean, had it been 3 or 4 years earlier, that injury, it might have been career ending. Been done. So I'm thankful and blessed that technology was as such that now they're just routine. You can come back from an injury like that. And I think about all the guys that came before me that had that injury and their careers were over and didn't have an opportunity to come back. And so really felt blessed to have that opportunity, and then you just want to take advantage of it and learn from it. But it did open up my eyes to the fact that I got to be thinking about, what am I going to do once my career is over? Right. Because you don't have too many opportunities, and when you have those opportunities, especially while you're playing, you got to really take it serious and take advantage of it.
Well, and also, you did a fantastic job planning ahead, right? While you're working and thinking about ahead, but it's not only so much the physical injury, of the knee, but I think a lot of guys, it's the mental part of trusting that knee and whether you're going to be able to rely on that again, right?
Oh, yeah. It was weird coming back because you don't know, and especially when I was coming back the week that I was going to come back, you're all anxious because we were getting ready to play the Raiders that week, and it was my first game back and Bo Jackson's first game back in baseball with the Royals, right? Yeah. And so that week of practice, we're out there practicing and everything, and we're, if remember Marty Schottenheimer. And,
that's Raiders week.
Yeah, it's Raiders week, and you're almost like playing a game that week before because he's still had those physical practices, right? Now these practices are nothing. They're not going to beat your body up. Marty didn't care about that. He's like, we're going to be physical. So we, you have a team period, and you're basically going full speed. And I remember Christian coming through the hole, and I come up there and hit him, and he go, "Why you hit me like that, Mom?" And I said, "Christian, you the biggest thing out here, man." With all his pads on and everything, he was so big. He was 300 pounds.
Was he really?
I had him step on the scale before a game in the locker room. We had this big scale. I said, "Christian, step up there, man." He had all his equipment on. He was 300 pounds.
Dude, his pads looked like they went above his helmet. Like they were massive. So big.
Yeah, so I'm going like, man, if my knee can hold up hitting you, then I know I'm ready to go. And he looks at me and goes, "Okay, Mom, I understand." So, but yeah, it's you're always apprehensive, because you don't know if it's stable. But I put in the work, and so I felt really confident that I could come back and not have to worry about it. I did wear a brace when I came back that first remainder of that season, and I went in and got it cleaned up because I had a bunch of arthritis in it, and got it cleaned up, and then I was fine. The next year didn't have to wear a brace, and it was fine and never affected me after that. So.
Right. Well,
right.
I think go ahead.
I was going to say, I was going to actually take it back a little bit to the early Deron Cherry days of, coming out of college, right? Undrafted. So you were no stranger to having to put in the hard work, having to prove yourself. We're starting to find ourselves being older a little bit. Not everyone knows all the stories, but share with some of the listeners, how that path started, when you got out of college, how you got with the Chiefs, because you actually were a really good punter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was a good punter at Rutgers. And actually, Ted Cottrell, who was our linebacker coach, when I came to Kansas City, but he was also my coach at Rutgers. He was the defensive coordinator at Rutgers, and then took a job with Marv Levy at the time, and to be his linebacker coach. And so I was, Ted had called me during the draft that year and said, "Hey, we may draft you in the later rounds. If not, would you be interested in signing with us as a free agent? We're looking for a punter. We're also looking at safeties too." And I played safety in college. And so it just happened that right after the second day of the draft, I wasn't going to get drafted, which I was okay with because I had a bunch of teams call me saying, hey, we want to sign you as a free agent. So literally you could pick and choose where you wanted to go. And it just happened that Kansas City, they were looking for punters, they were looking for safeties, and that was two positions that I could play. And so I took a chance and came out here. And at the time, Frank Gantz was the special teams coach.
Frank Gantz. There's a blast.
Yeah. The 10 fighter pilot is what I used to call him.
Yep.
You know, Frank used to tell us all these fighter pilot stories. And then we found out that he wasn't
real.
Fighter pilot. But he told good stories.
Right.
You know? But it was, you know, they brought me in and, you know, he wanted to change my punting style. And if you know that, when you've been punting a certain way all your life and never had a punt blocked and, you know, you're averaging over 40-some yards a punt, and now all of a sudden they want to change you, it's just like, oh, this is crazy. So I remember getting my letter to report back to camp like 2 days before training camp started. And they told me I was going to come back in like 2 weeks before training camp.
Okay.
So, you know, you're sitting there looking and you know the handwriting's on the wall. So if I'm coming in 2 days before camp, they're going to give me a little bit of shot and then they're going to just release me. So I remember this because I was in my mom's bedroom, and I remember when I was opening up that letter and reading and going like, shoot, what do I do, you know? And so I picked up the phone and I called Kansas City and talked to Coach Levy and said, hey, Coach, I know my punting's not what it should be, but, you know, Coach Gantz is trying to change me into a two-step punter, and I never had a punt blocked in college, and I can get the ball off quick. And but I can also play safety. I can play cornerback. I can play quarterback. So there's a lot of different positions. Would you give me an opportunity to come back in and work out at the safety position? Because they had drafted 3 safeties that year. Lloyd Burris was one.
Oh, yeah. Lloyd Burris,
and then they had 2 other guys, I think one in the 5th round and another one in the 7th round. And both of those guys had played in college all-star games. And I was watching them at minicamp, and I'm going like, man, I'm just as good as those guys. And so I asked Coach Levy, hey, will you give me an opportunity to come in and work at the safety position and still do some punting and stuff like that? And he said, let me get back to you. So I don't know who he talked to or whatever happened. He calls me back about 45 minutes later and says, okay, we'll bring you in. And so I came in, and basically all I did was play the safety position during training camp, you know, and I still punted, you know, in special teams period, but punting wasn't going to be, you know, the thing that I was going to do, considering Coach Gantz didn't, you know, he wanted a two-step punter. But Coach Levy gave me a chance. I mean, had I not made that phone call, my life would have been different.
Absolutely. Right.
And he gave me the opportunity to come back in, play safety, made it to all the way through the preseason. At the end, there were 7 defensive backs, and mostly we had a 45-man roster then. So that's usually the number 7. But the Chiefs had a unique situation. They had drafted 2 tight ends, Willie Scott in the 1st round, Marvin Harvey in the 3rd round, and they had Ed Beckman, who was a special teams captain, and then Al Dixon was a starter from the previous year. Neither one of those other tight ends, the young guys, were ready to play. So I'm dressed. It's on a Monday. We're getting ready to go play Pittsburgh. It was the opening game in Pittsburgh. I was excited because I grew up in New Jersey. My dad and them, family could all come up and see me play. First professional game. And I'm ready to walk out to practice, and I said, hey, you need to go see Les Miller. He's a pro personnel guy. So
oh, boy.
I go see Les Miller, and I'm thinking, you know, he's going
to tell you to bring your playbook?
Well, no, he didn't tell me to bring my playbook. I thought he was calling me up there to say, hey, congratulations on making the team. And, I mean, literally, I'm dressed to go out on the field for practice.
Right.
And he goes, hey, you know, we got to make a move. We're going to have to keep 4 tight ends, and nobody keeps 4 tight ends on their roster.
Not with a 45-man roster.
Crazy.
Right?
And so they wind up keeping the 4 tight ends, and then they only kept 6 defensive backs going into that first game.
Wow.
And so they said, hey, we got to send you home. And I was upset because I knew I had played good enough to make the team, and so I was like, okay, all right. So I went home, went back to Jersey. That weekend, I went up to East Orange, New Jersey, because my college roommate lived up there, and so I went up there and spent the weekend with him and his family. And Sunday night, my mom calls me and says, hey, I got a call from Kansas City. They got a plane ticket waiting for you at the airport in Philadelphia. They need you to come back out.
Here we go.
Somebody
Really?
got hurt.
Oh, okay.
So I rush home, pack up, get on the plane next day, get to Kansas City that evening. They drive me from the airport right to the stadium. I go upstairs to the general manager's office, Jim Schaaf. God rest his soul, just passed away. He goes, I'm sorry, but the guy wasn't as hurt as we thought.
Oh, my gosh.
And
Are you
so
serious?
we're not going to be able to sign you. So Gary Green, who was a cornerback at the time,
Oh, yeah.
teammate, and he had a 2-bedroom apartment. He was from Texas, so he says, hey, you can come stay with me. Drive me to practice. You have my car, use it. You can go to the gym, work out, go get your training done, and stuff like that. So I did that for the first week, and then the Chiefs called me back in and said, hey, if nothing happens this next week, nobody gets hurt, we're going to have to send you home. So because, they weren't allowed to.
So were you still kind of on the payroll then?
Yeah.
Okay, that's what I'm picking up. All right.
There you go.
Unofficially.
Well, they were giving me, a little per diem and stuff like that to keep me, hold me over, but they weren't paying me anything, just enough to.
Just so you wouldn't starve.
Right. Just so
I don't know that happens in today's NFL.
No.
I don't think it's
they got
that.
Practice squad now.
Right. I don't think it's that. That's true.
Right.
Yeah.
But so the next game, they had 3 guys that got hurt. 2 of them were on defense, and then they signed me immediately.
So Deron, I just have to ask this question, man. So were you watching the game, and like if you saw someone got hurt, were you upset? Did you feel a little bit bad, or were you kind of happy?
Well, I wasn't happy because the first guy that got hurt that game was Art Still.
Oh my gosh. Still a good buddy.
Art and I are cousins. So
Really?
Yeah.
I never knew that.
Yeah, our family. There's a Still side of the family that I grew up on. My great grandfather was a Still.
Wow.
And so we have known each other. I mean, all when I was growing up, because my dad umpired baseball, basketball, and he used to take me and my brothers down to when he'd ref a game or umpire a game, but mainly when he was refereeing basketball, because Art was a good basketball player.
And he was a pretty tall guy, too.
He's tall. He's 6'7",
huge.
Yeah.
6'7".
Hands the size of catcher mitts.
So his high school team, I don't know if you remember Derek Ramsey, who was a quarterback at Kentucky and played for the Raiders, tight end.
Yeah.
Art, Derek Ramsey, and there was another kid named Darryl Lee who played, I think Darryl played at the University of Florida. He was like 6'6", almost 280 pounds when he was in high school. Big guy.
Jeez.
That was their back line. And so
In high school.
So we go watch him play. And, Art comes from a huge family. There's 11 kids in his family. And all of them are, just all the boys. I don't think there's anybody that's under 6'3".
Good night.
And then the girls are tall. Matter of fact, his sister, Valerie, Valerie is the all-time leading scorer in Kentucky basketball history.
You're kidding.
I didn't. Wow.
Yes.
This is Art's sister?
Art's sister.
No.
Well, no
joke.
wonder. I mean, so I've always seen him at every event you do. He's part of so much. He's been in my foursome at your golf tournament a couple of times.
Yeah, he's family.
Yeah, he's family. That
he's
makes
cousins.
sense now.
Okay.
Yeah.
He's so funny. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
One of the funniest guys
He's
I've ever
hilarious.
met.
He's hilarious. And, you just, I was upset, that he got hurt, but
Yeah.
that kind of paved the way. And then there was a linebacker we had from Hawaii, Frank Malu Maliuna. And Frank got hurt that game, too.
Mm-hmm.
So there was 2 guys on defense, so they wound up signing me that next week. And then that was history.
Wow.
That's when it all started for me.
Right.
Well, the idea, I think the theme here for the first 20 minutes is, when people go through something or some type of adversity, right? It's not just, oh, shucks, that sucks. It didn't happen for me. I guess I'll move on to the next thing. There is something about taking action, and really, obviously, you're blessed. We hate the word lucky, right? So a lot of us are blessed, but bad things happen sometimes, or things that we don't necessarily plan on.
Right. So
you making the phone call, right, from your mom's house to say, hey, coach, is there another opportunity for me to try out at a different position, not just punter? That was you taking action and literally changing the course of your entire life.
Absolutely. And I tell kids this all the time. You never know when a situation arises when you have to make a decision. Mm-hmm. You're either going to be motivated to make that decision, or you're going to sit there and say, nah, I'm not going to do it.
Right.
That's it. And I tell kids all the time, you're going to get to that point where you're at a crossroad, and you're going to have to say, okay, what's important? You're going to have to come out of your comfort zone. And for me, it was a big time coming out of the comfort zone, picking up that phone and calling Coach Levy and saying, hey, give me an opportunity. And I'm so thankful and grateful to Coach Levy. And, just a story, when I retired my last year in 92, right before the 92 season, announced my retirement, and we did it at the stadium. And I remember afterwards going into the PR office, and the guy says, hey, you got a phone call. It's the first phone call that came in, and I go in there, and I pick up the phone, and it was Coach Levy.
Wow. At the time, leading the Bills to pretty
How
crazy.
awesome is that? Because, back then there was no cell phones yet.
Right. So he had called the PR office, and they got me on the phone with him, and he just wanted to congratulate me on such a great career. And I said, hey, Coach, do you remember? I called you and said, hey, give me an opportunity to come back in. And I just told him, I said, had you not made that decision to say, hey, my life would be entirely different now. So literally all the success that I've had in the National Football League is really a direct reflection of your ability to judge talent, I guess, and to give a young kid an opportunity. And so I never forgot that.
Well, it's such a great example, Deron, that, when people get knocked down or have choices that don't go the way they want to, and you kind of get, into a spot where you have to make a decision, right? And in our businesses, we just call it in a cool way, just being relentless, right?
Yep.
Looking for that yes. And you being relentless by making that phone call to Coach, literally changed the course of your life, right?
And not accepting no for an answer. I could have easily accepted that piece of paper that said, hey, come in 2 days prior, but I knew something didn't feel right inside of me. So sometimes when you feel like something's not right, you have to respond. And, and that's all, what we did throughout our career as football players. You're always in the pressure, right?
Right.
Because that game is always being filmed. They can see everything you do.
It's true.
You can't hide out there as much as you want to. Right. They're going to find you
get judged.
out.
Yeah.
Right. So the strategy in football is you go find the weakest link, right? And then you attack it. And, and you can't hide. As much as you want to try to hide somebody's deficiencies, you can't hide anybody's deficiencies. So when you get an opportunity, you got to be prepared. And I've always said this, all I was asking for was an opportunity. What we control as individuals, right, is how we prepare to take advantage of those opportunities. Are we prepared physically, mentally to go out there and do it? Am I studying? Am I the first one in, the last one to leave at night?
Yep.
Am I totally prepared so that each and every one of those guys, those 10 other guys that are on the field with me, they understand that they know that I'm going to be where I'm supposed to be and that they can depend on me every single play. And that was my goal, to make sure that they trusted me. And in the National Football League, that's what gets you on the field. That's what gets you the long career, is if those coaches believe that they can trust you.
Right.
And if they can't trust you, then you're not going to have a long career in the league. When they feel like they can trust you and that you're going to do everything and be consistent every single day, then you'll have a long career in the league.
Well, for those people listening, sorry to cut you off, DC. I think that's a lesson across no matter what somebody's doing. So if you're listening to the show and you're you're a teacher, or you're an amateur athlete, or you're running you're working at a mortgage company, right? It doesn't matter if the people around you, your team members, your leaders, if they trust you, if they know that you're going to battle every single day. We talk about this all the time with our team members. We've all got to row in the same direction. Mm-hmm. If one person starts going off sideways or starts reversing, then it's going to slow the entire operation down. So I love what you're talking about. Like, you're going to battle, and you need those other 10 men and your coaches to know that you're out there and they can trust you and you're not going to let them down. But I love the lesson across all platforms.
It's such golden nuggets, because it's just like what we talk about. You got to have all your team members on the same page, knowing that everyone's 100% all in and they're just not half into it. Because I'm sure you probably saw this in your career. I'm sure you saw some young guys come up and they were the absolute studs in elementary, junior high, high school, college, and they relied on a lot of their talent. Then they hit the NFL,
natural ability,
right? And then hit the NFL, and you can't always rely on that, because now you're surrounded by the best of the best, right?
Oh yeah, and you've got to have a good work ethic, but you got to be willing to be there alongside with your teammates, right? You've got to be able to show them that you're willing to work, and that in situations you can overcome adversity. That's the thing that people don't understand, is how do you overcome adversity? And when you talk about, you just made the point about guys that come in. I've seen guys that came in that were number one draft picks and couldn't make the team because, number one, they couldn't study, but number two, when adversity hit them, they didn't know how to respond because everything was easy for them.
They never had it before.
They never had it before.
Such a
so
good
they
lesson.
didn't know how to react to it or whatever they were doing. I remember this. I mean, working out some days at Arrowhead Stadium, going in there, running them stadium steps all the way around the stadium, and I couldn't get guys to go work out with me.
In the middle of summer,
In the middle of summer, it's 100 degrees, right?
Yeah.
And you got to go put that time in. Well, if you can't have enough motivation yourself to go put that time in,
Right.
then what are you going to do? I could easily sat at home and say, I'm not going to do it today because nobody wants to do it with me. But the measure of a guy is, what do you do when
No
nobody's
one's looking.
That's right.
You
That's
got to go
exactly
in there and
right.
do it. And I always felt that. So whenever I had success and I got named to Pro Bowls and all those things, I always remember those hot days in July, right? And people say, okay, what do you remember? I said, I remember those hot days in July when nobody would go work out with me and I had to go do it myself.
Yep.
I had to motivate myself to go do it. And you say, okay, what's the reward? Here's the reward.
Right. Exactly.
That's the reward.
That lesson goes with integrity,
Yeah.
right? Integrity is doing the right thing even when no one's looking, right? It goes with your drive to be the best at what you do. You're talking about running up those steps in the summertime. I've heard you tell that story before, and I've heard you mention somebody that did do it a couple of times with you named Paul Kaufman.
Oh, yeah.
And his son Chase was on the podcast a couple of weeks ago. He's a buddy of ours.
Yeah,
and
right.
I've been talking with Paul this week actually about being on the podcast.
And would he go out there and do it as well?
Yeah, I think.
Oh yeah, shoot. Hog was our leader. That guy. You talk about a workout fiend.
Yeah.
Oh
Yeah.
man, he used to run our workouts. Literally, he was a guy that we followed behind. I mean, and there's this big hill up behind Royal Stadium, and we used to run up that hill.
Like kind of going towards FCA up there.
Yeah. There's a well, and it's more to the left of that, but you're running up this hill, and I'm telling you, it was a gut changing deal. I mean, after about 2 or 3 times you're running up there, you don't want to go up there a 4th, a 5th, or a 6th time.
Right.
And Paul's sitting there, come on, guys, come on, let's go. He
That's cool.
he would just go. So you got to have guys like that you respect, that are motivating, and it was good to be as a group because then you're all, like you said, you're all rowing in the same direction, and you're all got something at stake there. So when you're out on that field, when the season comes, you can look at a guy that's next to you and you know that he's in the same mindset because he did the same thing, right? You know, he prepared,
Right.
so you know he's ready to go. So,
Right. And I'm sure that gives everyone on that side of the ball just more confidence, like, hey, we're all
in this
ready to
together.
rock and roll,
Yeah,
man. Let's
that's right.
go.
That's
We're in this battle together.
Yeah.
I mean, literally.
Absolutely. And you kind of mentioned earlier before we went on, Bobby, you know, if a little bit different choices of quarterback choices in the draft in the 80s.
Yeah. Let's talk, you know, anytime I can talk about this is cool. You know, we were talking before the episode started, just tee it up for me. Yeah, I mean, like, rowing in the same direction. It goes for the players. It goes for the front office. It goes for all leadership of all organizations. And I don't know that the leadership of the Chiefs was making decisions that helped row in the same direction in the early 80s when they passed on Dan Marino and took Todd Blackledge.
Yeah.
When that defense of the Chiefs was so incredibly strong for so long.
Yep.
And, you know, it didn't really have the offensive weapons to make sure that this team, I mean, like 4 playoff appearances in your 10 years?
Yeah.
Like, that's crazy to think that the talent that this team had.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, I look back at those years, and it just goes to show you that, you know, having the right type of people in the right positions makes a big difference. And we didn't really have, I would say, the good, solid football minds that you really need until Carl Peterson came and things changed
a lot.
And they brought in Marty Schottenheimer, who had, you know, a successful career at Cleveland as a head coach. So you offered that stability, and that's when the Chiefs kind of changed. The whole atmosphere at Arrowhead changed during that time frame, because you had football people, knowledgeable football people, making good football decisions, and they weren't afraid to, you know, make the decisions that impacted you. And you think about it, you know, that draft of Todd Blackledge set the organization back 10,
at least decade
12
easy.
years,
Yeah.
because you were never really in a position to get the number 1 pick and draft a guy, or if you were in position to draft the number 1 pick, there was never a quarterback that was available, other than that one class that they could have taken Marino. And I think everybody's sitting back up, man, why didn't you take Marino? Could you imagine with our defense and having him? Man, you could have, you know, there could have been championship banners lined up.
Yep.
For real.
That would have been good for him, too.
So
Because he didn't win any with my team.
So all I think about is, you know, the draft is an inexact science, right?
Yeah.
You've got some, you know, and we look back, and thank goodness that, you know, we drafted Mahomes when we did, and we didn't, you know, the Bears passed on Trubisky, and we didn't draft Deshaun Watson. I mean, there's a little bit of luck in there, so thank goodness that worked out. But going back a little bit, talk about what was the attitude and mindset change when Marty came in to Kansas City?
Well, I was lucky because I knew who Marty was. It wasn't like I didn't have an understanding of how he coached, because he was my coach in like 2 Pro Bowls.
Oh, yeah.
And so I knew he was tough. You know, in the Pro Bowl, you know, you go over there and, you know, they say it's a week of fun, right? You're enjoying it. And back then
in Hawaii,
the game meant something. You know, guys played. It's not like today where it's 2-hand touch.
Right.
You don't even know.
Nobody goes.
Nobody goes. You don't even know what the game is. But, you know, back then, you know, you really played because it was at the end of the season. It was the last game. And, you know, so you really put a lot of effort into it. And I think those coaches, other than, you know, the trip over there, they were getting a little bit extra money, so they wanted to win. And Marty was that way. I mean, he had us in pads every day.
At the Pro Bowl?
At the Pro Bowl. He had us in
relentless,
pads every
never relax.
And, you know, guys would be upset. And I remember one year, the year that the Raiders beat them, and it was always the team that lost the AFC Championship game, their staff went to the Pro Bowl. So the Raiders beat them. The Raiders wound up winning the Super Bowl that year. So, you know, Marty was a coach, and I'll never forget that it was on a Friday, and, you know, the NFC, those guys were in shorts every day. They had a 1-hour practice or whatever, and Marty had us out there for like 2 hours.
This is Marty's own personal Super Bowl.
Yeah.
And so I remember it was a Friday, I think it was a Friday or Saturday morning practice, and he was still having us in pads. And So I think Marcus Allen kind of did a revolt and told everybody, hey, don't bring your pads today. I think it was Friday's practice. Don't bring your pads. So nobody shows up. We get off the bus. We're going to practice over at the University of Hawaii. And we get off the bus. Nobody's got their pads.
Wow.
Man, I tell you what.
Did he lose his stuff?
You could, as red as that jersey is right there, that's how red Marty's face was when everybody walked off that bus.
I bet.
And didn't have pads on. And he just you could just tell he was. But we won. And both the times I was winning, we won.
That's
right?
awesome.
We won the games. But he was a very intense guy. So I knew we were getting an intense coach. And, the guy that, he had a system that he wanted to play.
Yep.
That was his system. The one thing about Marty, he was very stubborn. He believed in a certain way to doing things, and that was the way. And
Marty
the
ball.
way,
Yeah. But he was the leader, though.
He was, and I'll tell you a story. When he was in Cleveland, I was in Kansas City. They were playing the Broncos in a game, and so he called the stadium one day. I was in watching film. It was like 6:00 at night, believe it or not, and the trainer comes in the film room and gets me and says, "Hey, you got a phone call, Tom Pratt." And I'm going like, Tom Pratt. I'm trying to remember. Yeah, okay, Tom Pratt. He's the defensive line coach for Cleveland. So I go into the training room and I get, because Tom used to coach here years ago.
Yeah.
So he knew Dave Kendall, who was the head trainer at the time. So I go in there, pick up the phone, and I said, hello. And Tom goes, Deron? I go, yeah. He goes, this is Tom Pratt. He goes, hey, I got a Marty wants to talk to you. And I go, okay.
Okay.
So Marty gets on the phone. He starts asking me questions. Okay, we're playing Denver this week. What do you guys do? I'm watching film. You guys always seem to confuse him. What?
This is when he's coaching Cleveland.
This is when he's coaching Cleveland, and he's asking me. He goes, okay, what do you do? And I go, well, I said, first of all, I said most people give Elway a little too much credit that he can read defenses, and I said our game plan going in there is just to, disguise our coverages against him because he doesn't read defenses very good. What's good about Elway is he ad-libs. And when the pocket breaks down, what happens is people lose their receivers, and he's so talented and he has the arm strength. He can throw the ball a country mile. That's where he gets you. But literally, if you're able to confuse him, give him different reads at a pre-snap and make him work, you got an opportunity to be successful. And that's why we were always very successful early in the games. I mean, I can't tell you how many times we were leading them going into the fourth quarter.
Right.
And all of a sudden he brings his team back because he's seen
Just
everything already and he's just slinging it. So, but I told him that, and they wind up winning, beating them that game as success. So I was like, okay, so we gave away all our trade secrets, But, I think that's the only time, Marty would have said that he called a player to get some advice on playing against another team. So.
Now, did he send like a big thing of barbecue or a big thank you for that?
No. He didn't give me anything.
So we had JJ Burton on the show a couple of weeks ago, and first of all, like you, just a sweetheart of a guy, just salt of the earth,
Phenomenal.
Such a great heart and a great business leader and a motivating guy. He had a lot of Marty stories too, but he credits his entire career, like what Marv Levy was to you was Marty to JJ because he drafted him in Cleveland.
Yep. He just believed in him
and brought him back to Kansas City when nobody else was giving him a shot because I think JJ got hurt really early in his career. Or the Browns cut him.
Well, very similar story to where they brought JJ back, didn't have a spot for him.
Yeah, that's right.
He ended up being
sent him home.
Ended up being in an apartment with someone, and they gave him some meal money for a week or two. And then when a spot opened back up,
oh no, Marty. At the meeting, when Marty told him that he had to go home,
gave him cash,
took out his wallet, gave JJ $200 and said, will this keep you in town if you take your wife to dinner? Because I don't want you to leave town in case we can bring you back. Have you heard this story?
I hadn't heard that story.
And so at the meeting between Marty and JJ, Marty pulls out his wallet and says, $200. Will that let you stay in town for another night and take your wife to dinner? And JJ said, hell yeah.
Yeah.
So he took his wife to dinner and he stayed in town, and then Marty brought him back.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
We want to be respectful of time.
Yes.
So let's maybe focus a little bit and talk about some of the post-football stuff. So,
exactly.
Which, by the way, great stories. So thank you for sharing some of those. One in particular that I've been the most exposed to is Score One for Health. And we know that many children in the Kansas City area don't receive the health care that they need or deserve. And that's really where Score One for Health has come in. And the program focuses on reaching children, with comprehensive health screenings, while keeping them, safe and easy. But the thing about that they do it is you do it in schools, right? Where it's the most accessible for families. So maybe talk a little bit about what this does for elementary-aged kids and why it's important and why you've chose to focus so much time and energy and resources on this particular avenue.
Well, it goes back to my childhood being in a community that was close-knit. And there was a janitor at our high school, Mr. Merle Pratt. I talk about him all the time because he was such an inspiration to us young kids. He would always open up the gym and give us an opportunity to play and keep us off the streets and keep us in a positive light, knowing that once we left, he was going to have to clean that gym all over again.
Right.
And so he's not getting home till after midnight sometimes, and he never said no.
Wow.
Anytime we asked, hey, Mr. Pratt, can we come over? Because we had 2 gyms at the high school. One was an older gym and then a newer gym. And he would always, we were in one or the other playing basketball. So I never forgot that. And I thought that if I ever got in a position to help people, that's what I would do. So I met a guy by the name of Bob Ritchie. And Dr. Ritchie was a radiologist. Had graduated from KC University downtown, the osteopathic college. He was on their board and approached me after my career was ending and said, hey, we want to do something similar to what Len Dawson is doing at Truman Medical Center, raising money for the foundation, the hospital foundation. And this was at Park Lane Hospital Medical Center in Raytown.
Okay.
And he says, hey, would you be interested in hosting a golf tournament to raise some money? And I said, yeah, I'd be interested, but I want to make sure we do something that's going to be impactful to kids.
Right.
And so one day I was watching a program on Channel 5 TV, and it was a little girl. They were getting ready to put her into a special ed environment, learning disability, and they found out that she had it was like a rare eye defect, but it was correctable with just a pair of glasses. And so they showed her afterwards, and they showed us like this whole new world opened up to her.
Once she got glasses.
Once she got her glasses, like she could read, she could understand. It was like a new person.
See emotion on people's faces.
Yeah.
Right.
And I said to myself at that point in time, how many more of our kids are in school that have some issues and it's going undetected and they're being mislabeled?
And they don't have the resources to go in and fix it, right?
Because at that time, most of the medical people, like most of the schools had school nurses. The school districts were cutting back on school nurses because of their budgets. And so those people were getting out of school. So I said, why don't we just go in and do these health screenings in the school? And at the time, we started with one school. We had one nurse that we had hired, and we go in and do these screenings, and I go in and do assembly and talk to the kids. And the first school we went into was 250 kids. We went in, we took toothbrush and toothpaste and passed it out. And after we got done, we did an assembly. We got done. I walk in the principal's office, and this guy's got tears in his eyes.
Wow.
And he's going, Deron, you don't understand. This was in Raytown. And he goes, some of our kids, they've never seen this. They don't know what a toothbrush or a toothpaste is, right? And you would think that everybody knows. He goes, no, we've been asking for stuff like this. So we wind up starting there and then expanding the program, and then we got the university to offer some support with their student doctors, become part of their curriculum, that they do this every single year. And then we've gone from 250 to where we're screening, over 14,000 kids a year.
Wow.
And the object for me is to make sure that these kids understand what it feels like to be healthy as they start their career in education, because the greatest equalizer we could give those kids is an opportunity to get educated, right? And they can't get educated if they're not healthy.
Right.
And so regardless of their socioeconomic background, education is the greatest equalizer that I know and that my parents taught me about, because they were all educators. So I thought that this would be a great opportunity for us to change the lives of people, regardless of where they come from, at least give them a good start on their educational career by being healthy. So that's how we started.
Well, and not only that, Deron, that's just a truly amazing story, but you're building up the kids' confidence in themselves, right? You know, even though it's a toothbrush, but you're building those young minds up.
Yeah, and the other thing you're doing is, you know, we're getting them in front of these kids who are studying to be doctors. And so you're putting a whole different set of role models in front of them. And we wanted them to see that, hey, this is what you can become if you work hard and study hard, but you're healthy. And you know what it feels like to be healthy. And just to see these kids that go through, you know, because we go into these schools and we set up basically a clinic, and they get their vision, hearing, dental, total body assessment tests, blood pressure, you know, just everything. They check everything out.
A lot of attention that they would never otherwise get.
And some of them would never get this opportunity to get the medical attention without, you know, this program. And so they have their folders and they get a check mark, and they're so excited to see that. And you have these doctors that are interacting with them. It's just an amazing program, and it's done some really, really unbelievable work. And it does help us as a community, where you can take costs out of the system, where you can get these kids help, preventative help, before it becomes something that costs you thousands and thousands of dollars in surgery. So we're real grateful and blessed to be able to have that partnership with Kansas City University and all the volunteers that provide that opportunity for these kids to get their screening.
So before we forget, because we always want to get like this phenomenal word out to people, so where can people go to be able to help with this cause, Deron?
So if they go online to Deron Cherry Foundation.org, there's a list of everything in there, all the charities we support. There's even a link to donation if you want to volunteer. We have our annual fundraiser coming up. We have our big tailgate party on September 24th at my place of business, United Beverage Company. And then on that Monday and Tuesday following that, I think it's 26th and 27th, we have our golf tournament. We're breaking it out into 2 days this year. So we'll have a group on Monday and another group on Tuesday. That's
amazing. Nice. Because you have so many people that want to help out.
Right.
So good.
And so we still have opportunities if you want to sponsor, if you want to volunteer, if you want to, you know, donate to the cause. There's teams still available. If you want to put in a team, they're still available. So we would love your support. This is for a great cause. Not only do we work with the kids at Score One for Health, but Camp Quality is another one of our charities that we send these kids to camp for. We also work with in Raytown, the Midwest Animal Rescue, which has been phenomenal. And then a guy that you guys know very well, Ronnie Dumit, is answering the call. He's one of our recipients of the funds too, because we want to support our first responders, those folks that are on the front line for us on a daily basis. My brother was a police officer for a number of years, so it's something that's near and dear to me, and we want to continue to support our people that support us each and every day.
That's awesome. Again, that's the Deron. It's DeronCherryFoundation.org, where you can find. I was just on there this morning. You guys have made it so easy for people to be able to assist. Like literally, a click of a button.
Donate here.
Donate here. You get it. It's all tax deductible. So it's very, very easy.
And you get a chance to see all the people who support us, all the sponsors who have been with us for years. This is our 30th year.
That's amazing.
So that's crazy. It's crazy to me to think 30 years.
My first one was that one.
Yeah.
The 20th, because I've got that mug, and the shirts and everything. So I was looking at that. I'm like, I can't believe it's been 10 years.
I can't believe you started that when you were 18 years old.
Right. That's funny.
Yeah, I got a birthday coming up too. So
that's awesome.
Oh, that's right.
Well, before we wrap up here, there's a couple of opportunities for stories that I'd like to hear. One personally that I did not know until we did our research, but you were a driving force to bring the expansion team, the Jacksonville Jaguars, into the NFL. Can you just talk for a few minutes about how that happened? And I mean, what the heck? That's awesome.
Yeah. It was just crazy opportunity for me. One of my guys, a friend of mine who's a Budweiser distributor in Kansas, Pat Scherzer, God rest his soul, he passed away. But he was friends with Wayne Weaver, who was our majority owner. Him and Wayne were neighbors down at the Lake of the Ozarks. They had houses because Wayne originally was from St. Louis and owned a company called, I believe at the time it was Brown Shoes. And and then he wound up purchasing Liz Claiborne's shoe line and started Carnival Shoes, and so he made a lot of money in the shoe business, believe it or not.
Yeah,
and he wanted to be an owner in the National Football League. So at the time, the league was putting a huge premium on minority ownership, and so he called Pat and said, Pat, who do you know? He goes, well, I know Deron Cherry and Bo Jackson. He goes, I don't want to deal with Bo Jackson.
I'll call Deron.
Let me call Deron. So he got us in touch, set up a meeting, and we met at Grozo's downtown.
Oh yeah.
And had dinner. He says, hey, I'd like you to be a part of what we're doing in Jacksonville. And I said, okay, let me do some research. I'll get back to you. So I picked up the phone, and at the time, Paul Tagliabue was a commissioner, but his assistant was Roger Goodell. And I had been longtime friends with Roger from when I first went to the Pro Bowl. He was kind of a guy that went around and asked me if, I'd go do appearances and stuff like that. So we got to be good friends, and so I called Roger and said, hey, tell me about Wayne Weaver. What about Jacksonville? Tell me about it. He goes, well, I can tell you that ownership likes him, and I think he'll be an owner one day. And, I said, he goes, well, if, I can't guarantee you that you guys are going to get a team, but the owners like him. So I called Wayne back and said, yeah, I'd be interested in being a partner with you. And it was just, so I got him in touch with Lamar, and Lamar talked to him, and we had a great conversation. And if you remember the first time we went to Chicago for the vote, I was up against Walter Payton, because Walter Payton was with the group in St. Louis.
Okay.
So we didn't know if Jacksonville even had a shot, because we knew Carolina was going to be in there because they wanted to be in the Southeast, because there was such a void between Atlanta and, Baltimore.
It's such a huge college football mecca out there.
Such a huge area, so they wanted to be there. And then the other deal was St. Louis, one of the larger markets. They wanted to get a team back there, and so they had an ownership group that, was Jerry Clinton, who was a Budweiser, largest Budweiser distributor in the state of Missouri. James Orthwine, who was with a partner in New England, but decided he wanted to move because he was involved with Anheuser-Busch in St. Louis, was one of their big shareholders. And then they had Walter Payton. And for some reason, that deal fell through. Orthwine went out. Jerry Clinton wanted to be the main guy. And it just fell apart right at the last minute, right as we were going to Chicago. So they kind of bought in another guy who was Stan Kroenke at the time.
Oh, yeah.
And he had no idea what was going on. So they get in the meeting, and it was just like, wow, we can't pick St. Louis. So they actually chose one team, and that was Carolina. And then they said, hey, we're going to come back in a month and have another vote on St. Louis and Jacksonville.
For the second team.
For the second team. And we went back to Jacksonville, and, we actually put together a program where we sold like 10,000 club-level seats in 10 days and was guaranteeing the largest payday for a visiting team gate in the National Football League.
That typically helps with the other owners.
Makes friends.
Yes. Yeah. Which was brilliant. So who came up with that plan?
So we had some really smart people on our team. There's a guy by the name of David Selden, and he was a guy that graduated from Wharton School of Business. He was like a child prodigy, just smart with numbers and everything, came up with that idea, and the rest was history. And so when we came back 30 days after that, we wind up, they made the announcement that Jacksonville would be the 32nd team. And I'll never forget this. And we're standing outside in this lobby area, and the commissioner walks out and says, we've chosen Jacksonville as a team. And I'm like, I was stunned.
It's happening,
I was
right?
stunned. It's happening, and we're going to, now I'm going from player to owner in the league, and the first minority owner even before Walter.
Right.
And he was, and so when I turned around, I could feel somebody was behind me, and I couldn't, I'm just so excited, turn around, and behind me is Lamar Hunt.
No
He's
way.
standing
He
right
was
behind-
there.
He was there. He's standing right behind me. It's like he knew it was happening. He just wanted to kind of see my response, and we both hugged, and he's like, congratulations, and, I'm so happy for you. And,
That's special.
and so to me, I'll never forget that because, he helped so much, and he was just always so gracious to, and it's true, the Chiefs are a family.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the way I look at it. So, it's just it was an amazing experience, an amazing time to be involved with the NFL as, a player. You come from a free agent punter to an all-pro safety to an owner in the National Football.
The path is pretty incredible.
You can't write that book fast enough, right?
Right.
To talk about that.
That's a pretty amazing story.
It is.
It really is. And to have the support of the Hunt family.
Yeah.
I don't think a lot of people realize how big an impact.
Oh, yeah.
And how fortunate we were in Kansas City to have that family. So.
And we still do. And that legacy has continued on. Clark is, a chip off the old block. And, we're so lucky that we got an ownership like that. They're probably the best ownership in the National Football League.
Hands down. That's amazing stuff, Deron.
Well, Deron Cherry, thank you so much for your time. We want to be respectful of your time. We'd also be remiss if we didn't mention the passing of a great Kansas City Chief yesterday, Lenny the Cool Dawson.
Yeah.
So, to honor him, and I know that you were pretty close with him.
Yeah, Lenny, man, I tell you what, that was hard. We used to get together at Indian Hills. There's a group of us that would have lunch, at least a couple times a year. And so it was fun to get together and talk with Lenny and the old stories. So, we still have that with our Chiefs Ambassador group. At least we together,
Right.
and that's part of what Lamar's legacy is, that to have the alumni still be part of the family. When the Chiefs won the Super Bowl, they gave all the ambassadors rings too as well. So
special.
It
That's
just
awesome.
goes to show you just how first class that organization
For sure.
is.
That's
And
fantastic.
they never forget the guys that paved the way
Right.
for
That's
this.
the best part for sure. We'll wrap up here. I've got two stat lines. First, NFL safety, 11 seasons, 50 interceptions, 6 consecutive Pro Bowls, 5-time first team or 5-time All-Pro, second safety, 7 seasons, 32 interceptions, 5 Pro Bowls, only 3 first team All-Pros. The second guy, Kenny Easley's in the NFL Hall of Fame. First guy is Deron Cherry.
Yeah.
And he should be in the Hall of Fame.
All day long. All day long.
Absolutely. I know you're a very, very humble person, but
Yes.
that really stood out to me that that guy is in and one is not. And anyway, Deron, it's an honor and a privilege to have you here today.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much.
You did an amazing job. Thank you for all the gold nuggets you dropped and just all your foundations, man. Like you said, what an absolute story.
Well,
Absolutely.
There's a lot more gold nuggets, so maybe one of these days you'll have me back in.
We'd
Absolutely.
love that. We'd love that, guys. Hey,
Absolutely. We'll
thank
do
you so
that.
much. Make sure you check out DeronCherryFoundation.org, where you can donate to any of his organizations that he is passionate about. Score One for Health, Camp Quality, of course, our buddies over at Answering the Call and the Midwest Animal Rescue. Guys, this has been the Always Be Cool podcast. Find us online where you can download and stream all podcasts at Google, Apple, and Spotify, as well as Instagram and Facebook at Always Be Cool Podcast. Guys, Deron Cherry in the house. Thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you, Deron. See you guys. Take care.
If you are hearing this message, you've listened to the entire episode. And for that, Darren and Bobby thank you from the bottom of their hearts.
They hope you enjoyed this new episode. And if you did, please leave them a review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever else you're listening. Please share this episode with others who may be interested in our community.
Also, feel free to let DC and BK know which business or community leaders you'd like to see covered in future episodes. Get in touch in the comments or on social media. See you next time for a new episode. And remember, always be cool.
This podcast is powered by Summit Lending, NMLS number 1850081, Equal Housing Lender.